Hey, Melissa.
Hey.
How are you?
Good.
All right. Well, welcome to Common Sense Medicine.
Yes.
It's a new health podcast that is evidence-based, trying to get information out to people so that they better understand their health.
That's right. Just trying to make regular medical knowledge more common.
Yeah, and I think, after we've been seeing patients for a while, we realized that's what people need. They just need more information to better understand their health so they can make better educated decisions for their health.
That's right.
Go ahead. You are Melissa Wood.
That's right. Family nurse practitioner with additional certification in lifestyle medicine.
Which is awesome. And I am Tim Chen. I'm a family physician that has big interest in public health and evidence-based medicine.
That's right.
Now, again, this podcast is just, disclaimer time, right? This is just a podcast for medical information. This is not medical advice personalized for people because we don't know what people are going through.
That's right. That's right. So if you have any questions, any concerns, definitely consult with your provider before implementing anything new.
Perfect. So now that's out of the way, we're going to get into today's podcast.
Let's do it.
All right. Well, today's podcast, Melissa, is going to be a good one.
Yes.
Because it's a new year.
It is the new year.
Yeah. And what people do in the new year is make New Year resolutions.
Yes. They are ready to conquer their goals, whatever that is, as far as their health, their work, anything. They're just ready for it.
Yeah, which is good. Goal setting is really important. And, wanting to make yourself healthier, whether it's weight loss, whether it's better control of your diabetes, whatever it is, it's always a good thing. But I think we are all very familiar with what I call the New Year cycle, right? Which even this morning, went to the gym, packed. Although there was a thunderstorm, I was running for my life. Lightning was about to strike me. But right, we make the goal. The gym is full, right? Then about February, the gym cuts in half. And if we can make it to March, usually we're kind of back to the same people that were there all the time, which I think is very frustrating for a lot of people and a lot of patients.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The people that are making goals right now, and this is kind of what we'll break down today a little bit, what is going to set apart the people that make it just till February or March versus the people that are still doing this same grind in December and don't have to start over every January. So we'll talk about what sets those people apart.
Yeah, and actually we'll talk about it with evidence.
That's right.
Because a lot of times, right, there's all sorts of things online, and we've known that now. I mean, the internet, we discuss it all the time. I can't tell if it's good for healthcare, bad for healthcare. But there's a lot of people out there giving lots of video shorts on YouTube and Instagram, and people are watching these videos and they get super motivated. But right, what does it take to become a person where this is something that's consistent versus where this is just something that is a fad? Almost like I like to say the health trends are almost like fashion trends, right? Like a new dress, a new line of clothing. I guess we see clothes from the 80s now coming back, which is always kind of funny. But health is kind of like that. For a while it was, low fat, then it's low carb, then it's low sugar, then it's, plant-based, then it's carnivore. And then probably in another year, it'll cycle back through again. They'll just rebrand it. They'll call it paleo, now they call it keto. They call it Atkins, now they call it keto. It's just rebranding itself. But the point of today's podcast is, aren't you tired of all that? Tired of just cycling through? And what does it take to not become just a health trend person?
Right. Yeah. Instead of doing the latest trendy thing, how do we just make our lifestyle healthy, something that we can sustain through the year, and again, don't have to start over every Monday or every month or every year. Just something that we can continue.
Correct.
On lifelong.
That's right. And that's the point, right? Well, and today, Melissa, I think we'll start off like this. The first thing I feel like we really need to do when we're setting goals, and this is not just in health, this is in business, this is in, family life, whatever, is to actually take an honest inventory of what's going on. So obviously we're a health podcast, so we're going to focus on health, things like diabetes, obesity, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, stress, anxiety, depression. But really the first step is like, really seeing what your situation is, right? And seeing if something is a problem or something really isn't a problem.
And if it is a problem, is it a priority right now to address that specific problem versus a list of other things that we have on our plate?
Exactly. And really, when you make an accurate, list of what's actually going on in your health and things like that, then you can prioritize things, because things that you prioritize higher should get more attention, and things that you prioritize lower, we can do it later or things like that.
Right. And setting those priorities is important. When people are doing this kind of readiness assessment at the beginning of the year, it might be a good idea to truly sit down and see, am I ready to change something, whether that's adding exercise or adjusting diet, anything that is health focused. Is that going to be a priority? And for someone who is maybe not sleeping at night because they have a newborn baby, or, making a huge business change or things like that, maybe that's not at the top of the list right now. But for someone who is ready to change, what are the steps that make that change sustainable and long-term?
Actually, yeah, let's hold there for a second, Melissa. That word readiness, there's actually charts. And I mean, even when we were in training in motivational interviewing, even when in addiction medicine, I mean, this question of are you ready or not actually is really, really important and should take some thought.
Right. People are all the time, wanting motivation. And really it more boils down to, is it a priority? Is it something you're ready to prioritize? And when it becomes a priority, you find a way to fit it in whether you're motivated or not.
Yeah, exactly. And, I think we've seen that multiple times in healthcare. Well, we'll have patients who've been lifelong smokers, poor diet, alcohol, and, you talk to them. And then it's not until after they have a heart attack that they literally revolutionize their life. They stop smoking, they stop drinking, they eat better, they exercise, they lose 30 pounds, they feel excellent. And the question is, why did it take a heart attack to make that a priority? But it's like you said, it wasn't a priority. They weren't ready to change. It took a life event to really get them in that change mindset. And once they became a change mindset, once it was a priority, then all of a sudden they could do it. Obviously here in our healthcare clinic, we're hoping to do that before you have a heart attack.
Right.
And that's why when we do health coaching and things like that, the coaches are always trying to assess whether you have that ready mindset or whether you don't. But even with that, there are questionnaires online that you can look up, the readiness assessment, where you can really just answer some questions just to kind of see, is this time for me to do something different? Or maybe it's not, like you said, newborn baby, you're breastfeeding, you're exhausted. Maybe this is not a good time to talk about baby weight, that you're trying to get rid of. But maybe 6 months down the road, baby is sleeping. Maybe you're nursing, maybe you're not anymore. Maybe everything's back in more routine. Maybe now is the time to reassess.
Right. And I think a lot of people right now at the beginning of the year do feel that readiness for change. They want to set goals. They're excited about a new year. Anything to kind of start fresh is kind of a good thing. But also looking at the reason why you're doing it will also help to determine whether you're going to be able to maintain this and keep this a priority. Because if we're only doing it to hit, say, a certain number on the scale rather than some sort of goal that is bigger, maybe they just want to feel their best in their new job or whatever, something that's more motivational than a number on the scale or their pant size or whatever. It has to usually be something bigger. Playing with grandkids, being able to do the things that you love to do without pain or without limitation. That's going to be a lot bigger long-term motivator than just a number on the scale.
Yeah. Yesterday I was talking to a patient and she was diabetic. We're just talking about and she is truly revolutionizing her life. Her sugars are better. She's getting healthier. Which we might need to get her on the show one time just to kind of talk about her experience because, obviously I'm not a diabetic, you're not a diabetic, so it's sometimes hard for patients to us to kind of connect on what they're going through when they take these medications. But the reason she became ready was she saw what was happening to her family member who had to have amputations, who had to literally go blind and die at a young age, way earlier than he needed to be, because he wasn't taking it seriously. And so for her, when she was evaluating her priorities, she, of course, we're in Mississippi. The food here is great. It's just not great for diabetes. And she was normal, just going along, eating this. But it wasn't until she saw her family member going through that now this became a priority. And she even said that family member was telling her, don't be like me. Like, don't get to this situation. And it wasn't until that clicked in her brain that she was like, I can't be like this anymore. And so she came, took everything in her, we empowered her. She can do this. We put her on the right medications. But the biggest part was she changed her lifestyle. And she had a goal, she had a plan, and she started executing the plan, and she's doing better.
Right. Yeah. And just like with anybody, we can give tools and advice and things like that, but it really is up to the individual what they do when they're not in front of us. And so when nobody's watching, nobody's holding you accountable, what are you going to choose to do? And that's the biggest part of who ends up successful at the end and maybe who doesn't.
Correct. Which, here we go, Melissa, drum roll, because people have listened to this. They're like, yes, that's me. That's me. I try. I can't get there. What does it take? And so the reason we're bringing this up is I was actually, I use Audible. I read books, and, I'm just looking through books, and a book got suggested to me about something called grit. It's by, oh my goodness, Dr. Duckworth. She is a PhD psychologist. She was actually a school teacher before, and she started realizing, how can I predict which students will do well in school and which students don't? So she actually stopped teaching, went back, got a degree in psychology, and now has published multiple papers on trying to figure out how you can maybe determine if someone is going to be successful or not. And she looked at multiple different industries. So it wasn't just school and kids. It wasn't just, she went to West Point Academy, try to see if they can predict who will graduate, who won't. Went to businesses to try to see who would be the highest salesperson, who wouldn't, essentially trying to find a characteristic that would predict if someone is successful. And she found out that it wasn't talent, it wasn't IQ, it wasn't family income, it wasn't a lot of things that we would associate that would make you a successful person. It was actually a characteristic called grit.
Yes, and that's fascinating because I think we automatically think that the most talented person or the smartest person or the most privileged person will automatically be the most successful, especially if you're putting two people side by side, which one has the biggest chance for success. We normally would lead towards that person, but when you really come to think of it, and the most successful people, they aren't necessarily the people with the highest IQ or who got the best grades in school. They're the people who just kept getting up every day and doing the work, whatever it was, whatever goal they had, they just keep doing it every day to work towards achieving whatever it was they were working toward.
Exactly. And that's exactly the definition of grit. The definition of grit is perseverance through adversity for long periods of time to achieve a goal that you want to achieve. And if people have that mindset, so it's called the grit mindset, if you have that mindset, then in multiple things in life, whether it's health, which is what we're talking about, but business, right? Whether it's family, whether it's, you want to become a better basketball player or a soccer player or sports, that's what it takes. And that's actually been confirmed by multiple different people. In fact, another very famous researcher that only looks at successful people, he goes world-class soccer stars, CEOs of business, trying to figure out how they became that versus not. And he has the saying that says it's 10,000 hours to take you from a novice to a master, which essentially is telling you there is no shortcut. There is nothing that makes this process any easier. It's putting in the hours, it's putting in the time, and also putting in quality time. This is what he was talking about. It's not just I show up to work 40 hours next, 40 hours next. And, of course, if you do that, you'll get 10,000 hours, but you really won't be any more masterful than you were when you weren't, but it's putting in hours and being diligent and deliberate in trying to achieve a goal, which again, the first step is, what is the goal? And now you have a direction. How do you achieve the goal?
Right. And for people that are just setting these goals at the beginning of the year, really what is going to set those people apart is that progressive growth, whatever that is. It can't just be based off of a New Year's program that you're hoping to just muscle through and your life is transformed. Really, any goals you're setting today should be, something that you're envisioning maybe a year from now, 2 years from now. So if your goal is to lose 50 pounds, for example, which we could go on a whole different podcast about really how a goal of losing 50 pounds probably should be more like a goal of, I just want to be active and with no pain and feel better and, really having those motivations. Again, more than a number on the scale, but that is a whole nother podcast.
Yes, it is.
We'll put that one down for later.
Yeah.
But for the people that are setting goals, say to lose 50 pounds, just for this example, starting a 12-week, bikini body program or whatever the case may be is not going to help you reach the long-term goal.
Correct.
If it does help you have that success of weight loss, as soon as you go off of it, or if you fall off even before the end of the program, you may not be much better off than you were in the beginning because you're not sustaining that work. And so any short-term fix is not getting you where you want to be a year from now or 5 years from now. You really have to look at the long end goal and know that it's a marathon. It's not a sprint to get there. It's something that you'll be doing day after day after day for those, 10,000 hours or whatever until it's set in stone. That's who you are. That's what you do.
No, you have nailed it right on the head, Melissa, because it's like you said, if we do a trend, and it's fine. I mean, there's a lot of 12-week programs, and things like that. What we've seen multiple times is patients will do that and they'll feel better and they'll look better. But then as soon as they get the goal, they're like, I got here, I'm going to go back to what I was doing. And then it's like, wait, why did you go back? Why did you change all that? And it's one of those things that, like you said, the mindset has to be different. It has to be something like, this is something that I'm just going to grind at slowly but surely, like the turtle and the hare, right? And like I said, it's a marathon, which you've run before, which we were at Disney, and I saw these marathoners like, man, everybody looks so fit. But, they've put in the hours. The days that it's raining and you have to do a 20-mile run, guess what? You just got to do it, And so that mindset of that marathon, that my goal is the 26-mile, run. This is the steps it takes to get there. And rain or shine, tired or not, some days I just have to push through and do it. That's just kind of what it takes to achieve that goal.
Yeah. And just knowing that is something that, right, when you reach that goal of that marathon, well, what do you do next? How do you keep persevering and improving and growing? And, an example recently, someone that I spoke to did do a program, lost 30 pounds over several months through the last year. And she said, December came, it felt so good just to drop it, eat whatever I wanted for a month and not have to worry about it anymore. But she gained essentially all that weight back in a matter of 6 weeks or so. So now it's starting all over again. So how do we break the cycle and just continue on so we're not starting over?
Exactly. I mean, I think the story we're telling is so, everybody knows the same story, right? They've gone through it. They're tired of it. They keep trying something different. So now we need to figure out, okay, consistency. How do we get that consistency? And we talk about this grit mindset, this mindset of, persevering despite, through adversity for a long time. Right. And this actually makes sense. So we kind of know like, hey, patients, people that are very determined. They're working hard. They have a goal. They know where they're going. They seem to achieve great things. And we want to apply that even to our health. So I think, just looking back at what we talked about, step one is really, are you ready?
Yes. Just knowing that you are truly ready to commit to change is the first step. Or maybe even admitting there's change to be made.
Right. You gotta see, hey, is this a problem, right? Is my diabetes, like some people's diabetes, A1C is completely uncontrolled. And to them, they don't care, And even in our clinical practice, we've seen that when patients don't care, to them, they can't feel it. It is really hard to convince them to change something.
Right. It's just like if someone is smoking, you can't really talk to them much about smoking cessation until they're ready to hear it. You can mention it at their regular visits. It'd be a good idea to stop smoking, but unless they're ready to make that change, there's no reason in counseling them through the whole thing, step-by-step process on how to do that unless they're ready.
Exactly. And, as far as now people hear that a way to know if you're ready really, is journaling, writing things down, writing down your goal. And maybe like getting specific about why you want to change. What's your goal? What's your motivation for changing? If it's just, something superficial, I feel like it's really hard to keep going. But like you said, if it's like, I want to be able to play with my grandkids and not have back pain, shortness of breath, and chest pain. I want to be able to go to a football game with my grandkids and walk up the steps and not have to stop a few times because I'm short of breath. If that's your motivation, that motivation goes a little deeper than maybe it's all about me, but there are other people that are involved.
Right. Yeah. And just having that bigger reason that is motivating even years down the road for you to sustain that long term.
Exactly. Which brings us to the second step. So step number 2 really is making goals, specifically, I would say realistic goals. You can't go like, I want to lose 100 pounds this year, so I'm going to eat 500 calories a day. That's not sustainable. Or even I've had patients like they come in, they get super motivated. They're like, I'm vegan. I'm like, you were carnivore yesterday. You can't be vegan. So like, you can't do it. If you set that as a goal, just realize you need to put maybe many small goals in between to get to that over time.
Right. It's got to be realistic. It's got to be some change that you can still see yourself doing a year from now, 5 years from now. That's why so many of these fad diets or, quick fix programs, that's why they don't work. You're either so deprived with your diet that, of course, you're not going to be doing that 5 years from now consistently.
Correct.
Or you go all out in the gym day one and you're so sore and you're working out an hour or 2 hours a day. And is that really going to fit into your life long term? Maybe not,
Exactly.
So just making a realistic plan, something that you can see yourself doing.
Yeah, exactly.
Long term.
Yeah. No, actually, speaking of the gym, I had a patient one time. He had a goal that he wanted to work out 3 times a week, but he literally did nothing. So he had 0. So his first step of his goal, so that was his big goal. So the first step to achieve the goal was he was just going to drive to the gym, walk out of his car, walk in the gym, and then leave. Didn't touch a weight, didn't go to a class, didn't do anything. And he literally did that for like 3 weeks. But the whole point was that first step was just to make going to the gym a habit. And then afterwards, he started adding a workout. He started adding really short ones, maybe only 15 minutes, and he's back out. 30 minutes, he's back out. He's still working out now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the steps it took for him to achieve that goal.
Habit forming is a huge part of this. When it becomes something that is so consistent, so regular in your day-to-day schedule, that it's just something you do, whether, just as much as brushing your teeth or doing laundry or whatever. We may not always feel motivated to do those things, but they are habits and they are things that have to get done. So we just do them.
Right. Which exactly, that is like your third step.
Toss that one up for you.
That's right. Well, and exactly. So once you've got the goal, once you know why you're doing it, you're ready for change, you've got the goal. The third step really is that grit piece, which is you just got to do it, and I kind of, named this the third world mindset because, I never lived in the third world, long period, but my parents grew up when Taiwan was really poor. They had nothing. And to them, like when they have to walk to get water for their house, you just got to do it. Rain, shine, you don't feel good, you have a headache, whatever. You just got to do it. If you don't do it, you will literally not have water for that day, for food or whatever. And so because getting the water is such a priority for them, they will find ways to do it. And so having that mindset of like persevering through adversity, even when it's raining. So speaking of the gym, even when it's raining, even when it's cold, even when it's, hot, whatever the things that our brain can make excuses for us that we don't, that make us not do it. We have to literally use willpower to like push past that and know that you can, because there are plenty of people in other countries with much harder lives that do that every single day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we hear that all the time from our patients and whoever, just maybe they're really doing really well. And then they say, well, then it just got so hot this past summer. A lot of people said, it was a hot summer.
It was.
Because I was out there running. Trust me, I know it was hot. But that was their excuse to stop working out for 2 months or 3 months because it stayed 100 degrees for like eternity. But the people that wanted to keep doing their regular routine found a way, whether that was going at a different time of day so they weren't with the heat, or just making sure they were extra hydrated or slowing down their pace or whatever the case may be. The people that wanted to do it still did it. And we hear all the time, I know what I need to do. I just can't get motivated to do it. I just can't do it. And that's the point. We're not going to be motivated all the time. Almost never. Right. we have to do it. And then sometimes motivation will even follow that, but not always. We just still have to do it.
Exactly. And that's really, there is no shortcut. I think we did our ADHD episode last week, and one of the questions was like, having a hard time paying attention in lectures. Or you would rather do something else. Of course we would rather do something else. That's not fun. Of course you would rather be doing something else than, walking out there in heat or whatever. But sometimes that's right. You just have to push past that. And really, tying it back to habit, once it becomes a habit, it actually gets easier. Once walking or exercising 3 times a week becomes your habit because you feel better, because you get the endorphins, you actually feel bad when you don't do that. And a lot of times, I listen to interviews of patients living in blue zones, talking about why they eat that. I heard this interviewer, he asked this lady, she's like, how do you like always eat good things and how do you not eat bad things? And they had a hard time understanding that. Like, what do you mean? How do I try to eat healthy? Her response is like, we just eat. Because eating that way is a habit to them, and to them it's just, this is just how it is, And so I thought, to get to that point where, being a healthier person, controlling your sugar, controlling your blood pressure, taking time for your mental health, all those things are so important. They're hard. They're all hard until they become a habit. Once they become a habit, it maybe not easy, but it definitely gets easier.
Right. It's just something that you don't skip anymore. If that's something that you do and you're used to doing, you just find a way.
Right. So I guess we did a thing, Melissa.
Yeah, I think that is it. It's deciding you're ready to change, making a plan, and then sticking to it, even when it isn't always easy.
Perfect. Yeah. And sometimes, it takes like maybe a side, like having friends that do it with you, having accountability partners, which, even here in our clinic, because we have our coaches, we have some patients that will talk to our coaches every month, every 2 weeks. And because they know that they need that accountability to stick with it. And the ones that have done that, they realize like, this is the engagement I need. They've actually done very, very well at keeping that going. And now we might not see them that often, but because they've developed this into a habit, their routine, they're actually doing very well. And that's what we're encouraging our patients to do is this is a new year. Not everything has to change. You're already, you're fine. You're a good person. You're a nice person. There are things about you that are really good. But when you realize there's something you do want to change or something is a problem, there is this grit element that can help you make it successful, make it consistent.
Yes.
Perfect. Well, Melissa, any final thoughts?
I think that's it.
Awesome.
Good closing.
It is. Well, Melissa, I'll tell you, next week, we're talking vitamins.
Yes. That's a good one, too.
Yeah, that's
Everybody's
a big one.
bought all their beginning of the year programs that sold them supplements. And
Oh, my goodness. Yeah. I've been doing a lot of reading and research on these vitamins, the history. Why did we start making vitamins kind of like in the late 1980s, early 1990s? And the data isn't so encouraging, but we'll talk about it in detail.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Very good. Let's do it.
All right, Melissa. Well, next week it is.
All right.